You were not paying attention. For decades, warning signs were right in front of everyone. In the media, in Hollywood movies, in the newspapers, in the countless wars and loss of life, in the disappearance of children, in the abuse of both men and women. Do you think that sending a man to war is not an abuse of some kind? For decades, humanity has allowed everything that has gone on to take place through complacency, turning a blind eye, not wanting to get involved, not wanting their idyllic life to be disrupted or to get their hands dirty. And you act surprised that the world has gone belly up. You are fighting for your freedom, rights, and your future. It is supposed to be a travesty when one single child goes missing, so much so that no corner of the world should be a haven for the person who stole them. But that is not the case, is it? Millions of parents scream out for their babies who disappear, and they live a life with no closure and an empty space that can never be filled. Young men and women are spared a story of power and glory, victory and freedom, and they volunteer to be murderers. Since when did the word war change the taking of a human life into something that earns a medal? Since when did the loss of limbs and life constitute an act of bravery or honor? Whose war have they been fighting? Did they gallantly stand outside their very homes, their city capitals, and their crops and defend their own land? They did not. Whose war were they fighting? Whose dreams and desires were they fulfilling? What if the wars were for reasons that were never disclosed to them, and millions of mothers and fathers worldwide mourn the loss of their children because they believed the story told to them? How much longer do the few have the power to tell the story of the masses? It is a script that works in nobody's favor, works for a handful only, and they have no regard for anybody's children. For an old man's son is no less dear than a young woman's newborn baby girl. For how long have you ticked the voting box, not believing or even caring who earns your penmanship? Why are you not holding those you choose accountable? Why are you not demanding that they stand upright, engage their hearts, and uphold their position with dignity and without personal agenda? Now there is a truth. Why are the media channels not sharing the good news? Why are you so wrapped up in negative dramas, debauchery, and mayhem? What did you expect? Why are you listening to the weather, expecting storms and mutely hoping for sunshine? Why don't you decide what day it will be and whether the skies play ball or not? Inside you is the eternal sunshine regardless. How can you expect a wonderful future for your children when you agree to the needles that they insist upon and you act as if it were natural? It is not natural. It is normal. If normal is what you expect, normal is what you get. Normal is acceptance of all things that are not sanctioned by common sense, understanding, and in favor of the well-being of every person, recognizing that they were made perfectly capable of healing themselves. Why do people starve in too many countries and others live in castles and palaces, surrounded by obnoxious skins of once beautiful creatures? Why have women been convinced that they are imperfect just the way they are, that the wine bottle is more important than the wine? What did you expect when you push your strollers along the pathway and expect all other pedestrians to move aside? Do you not realize that your child is already learning to be obnoxious from your behavior or entitled? Do you give a thought to your child's imagination, the one that teaches them to create their own reality in a powerful way without being a tyrant or a victim? Do you allow them to learn for themselves, or have you lost the patience to observe them over time until they accomplish the challenges before them, whatever they may be? The world as we know it to be now is no one person's fault. And if you have tyrants in places of power, it is because you have put them there. If they are taking your homes, jobs, and lands away, you voted them in, and you did not dig deeper into their character. If they deceived you, it is because you are deceivable, and your sense of the discernment was covered over by a need to remain unseen, a need to be told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Common sense was bartered with and exchanged for convenience and a couldn't be bothered attitude. Who do you blame for what is transpiring in your world and in your life? The government, the royals, the rich, the powerful, the gods, the takers and makers? Why do you listen to any religious words that divide one man from another because of their color, culture, creed, and because they name their supreme deity by a different name? Does it not make sense that if all work towards a future that has a common ground, there's enough space for differences? Is it not common sense that a Jewish mother cries at the funeral of her unborn child as loudly as a Muslim or Catholic one does? Does a Christian father not love as deeply as a Buddhist one does? What did you expect? When you allow the differences between individuals to become greater than what was shared and common between them, since when did you begin to turn a blind eye towards those that needed love, help, a kind word, and some comfort? Since you prized designer clothing and handbags over tenderness and generosity? Since when did the darkness of ignorance blacken the light of love and compassion, and the wants of the few become more important than the needs of the many? Why bother to ask when the oceans teeming with life have been polluted with blood and elements so foreign to them that the creatures beach themselves to escape this world? How bad must it become that the most incredible creatures in our oceans cannot find their way amidst the sonic waves and nuclear weapons? Do you know what becomes of any species that cannot find its way home? Ask the tuna, who depend upon the setting sun to dive to the depths that keep them safe, except from greed. Do you know what becomes of a species that cannot find its way home? It must remain where it is, marooned, ever believing and hoping for some miracle to show it the way until its last breath. Some survive, some do what they always have done, some begin the same self-defeating behavior once again, and some give up. And the trees still stand, and the mountains remained unmovable, observing the passing of time through the ages. But what of those that find a stirring within their inner core, a tickle or nudge that ever stirs them and does not allow them to wait in the shadows any longer? They sit up and pay attention and refuse to be dullards and ignorant. They want to see and hear what they have allowed into their world. They want to know even if it hurts, and especially if they can learn from it. They take the pangs of disgust on the shoulder like a numbing punch, and they begin to move their entire belief system out from the shadows and into the light, where they are free to feel and voice their feelings. They feel for the mothers and fathers, the sisters and brothers, the creatures and forest giants. They feel into their future and they acknowledge the ones that were once an option and they discard them for brighter ones and ones that will lead them home. They switch on their navigational systems and speak out when they see that a leader has no honor and they make them accountable. They refuse to be deceived by face value and they practice compassion for those that remained glued to their perception and deception. They choose to see rather than turn a blind eye, listen rather than turn a deaf ear, and they acknowledge the right of every inhabitant of this planet to sleep soundly, eat heartily, grow their own food, and rest comfortably with a roof over their head. There is nothing like the ability to take care of oneself from the very beginning to the very end without ever owing a debt to another. These are the ones that know what to expect. For them, the future is certain and bright indeed.